Japan is a land of beauty, tradition, and ancient history. But behind the temples, the cherry blossoms, and the peaceful landscapes lies something far older and far darker. A mythology shaped by fear, nature, war, and the belief that spirits walk among us even today. For thousands of years, Japan has told stories of gods who battle in the heavens, monsters that stalk remote mountains, and spirits that follow the living until their final breath. These legends are more than old tales. They are woven into the culture, whispered through generations, and preserved in rituals that continue to this very day. So tonight, we step into the shadows of Japan's folklore, a world where light and darkness are locked in eternal struggle, a world of gods, monsters, and restless ghosts. A world where even the most peaceful places hold secrets you were never meant to know. Our journey begins with one of the oldest and most important stories in Japanese mythology, the legend of Amaterasu, the sun goddess. The myth says she once withdrew from the world, hiding inside a cave after a violent conflict with her brother. Without her light, darkness swallowed the earth. Crops died. Winter spread. The gods panicked. They gathered outside her cave and used music, dance, and even trickery to lure her back out. And when she finally emerged, she brought sunlight back to the world. At first glance, it seems like a myth about night and day, or the changing seasons. But throughout history, this legend served a darker purpose. It explained the belief that even divine beings can fall into despair, that the cycle of light and darkness is not guaranteed, and that the world can plunge into chaos at any time. Many ancient rituals in Japan were performed out of fear that Amaterasu might one day withdraw again. Festivals, dances, and shrine ceremonies weren't just celebrations. They were attempts to keep the sun itself from abandoning humanity. But if Amaterasu represented light and hope, her brother Susanoo was the opposite. Wild, unpredictable, and destructive. Banished from the heavens, Susanoo wandered the earth until he encountered a family weeping beside a river. They told him that every year, an enormous 8-headed serpent rose from the waters and demanded a sacrifice. They had already lost 7 daughters. Only one remained. Susanoo, seeking redemption, and perhaps a chance to prove his worth, devised a plan. He brewed enormous barrels of strong sake and placed them along the river. When the serpent emerged, all 8 heads drank until the creature collapsed. Susanoo took his sword and beheaded the monster, discovering inside its tail a legendary blade that would become one of Japan's most sacred imperial treasures. This is more than a monster-slaying story. To many historians, it symbolizes ancient battles between tribes, floods that devastated early settlements, and the belief that chaos must be conquered again and again. Even now, shrines across Japan reenact the slaying of the serpent to ward off misfortune, because in folklore, the serpent never truly dies. It always returns in another form. But Japan's mythology is not only about gods and cosmic battles. Some of its most unsettling stories belong to the realm of the Yurei, the vengeful dead. Unlike Western ghosts, which are often harmless or symbolic, Yurei are relentless. They follow, they cling, they haunt until their torment is answered. They usually appear with long, tangled black hair, white funeral robes, and expressionless faces distorted by sorrow or rage. Their stories begin with tragedy, betrayal, murder, heartbreak, or injustice. But what makes Yurei terrifying is their purpose. They don't appear randomly. They appear for someone. Many of Japan's most famous ghost tales, from centuries-old kabuki plays to modern horror films, revolve around Yurei who refuse to rest. Families once placed protective talismans above doors, avoided traveling at night, and performed purification rituals not to banish demons, but to keep the angry dead from entering their homes. Even today, some abandoned houses in rural Japan are left untouched because locals believe a Yurei remains inside, and no one is brave enough to test it. But if Yurei are the spirits of the dead, Oni are the punishment of the living. Oni are often described as horned giants with red or blue skin and wild hair, armed with massive iron clubs, but their true horror lies in their purpose. Oni appear where evil festers. They drag corrupt souls into the underworld, tear apart those who commit unforgivable acts, and haunt places where suffering once took place. For centuries, Villages believed that famine, disease, or sudden misfortune were signs that Oni were near. During Sechisubun, a ritual still practiced today, families throw roasted beans out their doors while shouting Oni wa Soto, or demons, out. It is a tradition born from fear, a fear that if the Oni enter your home, your fate is sealed. Some legends even say that Oni were once human, criminals, murderers, or people consumed by rage who died and transformed into demons. Their stories serve as warnings that evil actions live on long after the person is gone, and they take monstrous form. Yet not all supernatural beings in Japan are evil. Some are tricksters, protectors, or unpredictable forces of nature. Among the most famous are the Kitsune fox spirits with incredible intelligence, magical powers, and the ability to shapeshift into human form. The more tails a kitsune has, the more powerful it becomes. At Chinini tails, it becomes almost godlike. Kitsune are neither good nor bad. They can reward kindness, punish cruelty, mislead travelers, or seduce humans. Many shrines across Japan are dedicated to Inari, the deity of prosperity and agriculture, who is said to be served by thousands of kitsune. Farmers once left offerings of rice and sake to keep the fox spirits happy, believing a single angered kitsune could ruin an entire harvest. But some of the darker stories tell of fox spirits possessing humans, whispering into their minds, or manipulating entire families. Kitsune don't just hide in forests, they hide behind faces. The mountains of Japan, with their deep forests and sudden cliffs, are home to another kind of being, the Tengu, half-human, half-bird, often depicted with long noses or beaks. Tengu are known as masters of martial arts and guardians of sacred places. But they are also tricksters. They mislead travelers, lure arrogant warriors into danger, and punish those who disrespect the mountains. Samurai once believed that if a skilled fighter suddenly went mad, it was because a Tengu had possessed him. Some myths say Tengu kidnap monks to test their discipline. Others claim they appear before disasters as warnings. Their presence in folklore reveals something important. Japan's mountains were once seen as living spirits themselves, untamed and unforgiving. To wander them carelessly was to invite the Tengu's wrath. But the coldest legend in Japanese folklore belongs to Yuki-Onna, the snow woman. She appears on winter nights during blizzards, floating silently across the snow in a white kimono. Her face is pale, her breath freezing the air, her eyes both beautiful and deadly. Travelers who meet her rarely survive. Some stories say she drains their life force with a single breath. Others say she appears as a lost woman in need of help, only to reveal her true nature once the victim lets their guard down. Yuki-Onna represents winter itself, beautiful, silent, and merciless. In some villages, families told their children never to open the door during a snowstorm, no matter who was calling from outside, because it might not be a person. It might be her. But perhaps the most disturbing legend of all is that of Jorōgumo, the Spider Woman. According to the myth, she begins as an ordinary spider that lives for hundreds of years and eventually gains the power to transform into a beautiful woman. She uses her appearance to lure unsuspecting men to her home. Once inside, the illusion fades. Her true form emerges, and the victim's fate is sealed in silken venom. Many waterfalls, forests, and abandoned houses across Japan are associated with tales of joy. Travelers were warned never to follow a woman who seemed too perfect, too calm, too inviting, because the Spider Woman's beauty was a trap designed for one purpose: to feed. These legends are terrifying on their own, but together they reveal something deeper about Japan's mythology. Unlike many cultures, Japan does not separate the world into good and evil. Its stories reflect a worldview where nature is alive. Spirits walk beside the living, and every emotion, love, fear, rage, jealousy, despair, can give birth to a supernatural being. These myths survived for thousands of years, not because they entertained, but because they explained. They helped people understand storms, diseases, strange sounds in the night, and the unpredictable forces that shaped daily life. Even today, shrines, festivals, and rituals dedicated to these beings continue across Japan. Families still throw beans to ward off Oni. Pilgrims still climb mountains believed to be guarded by Tengu. Travelers still pray at shrines dedicated to and stories of Yurei and Jorōgumo still appear in movies, books, and urban legends. These myths endure because they speak to something timeless, the idea that the world is more mysterious, more dangerous, and more alive than we imagine. And that brings us to the final question. Why do these stories still matter today? The answer is simple. Myths survive when they reflect reality. Not literal reality, but emotional truth. The fear of being alone in the dark. The guilt that follows a betrayal. The temptation of beauty. The terror of winter. The danger of arrogance. The unpredictability of nature. Japan's darkest myths survive because they feel real. They warn. They guide. They caution. They teach. And they remind us that even in a world of technology and science, the shadows are never far away.